All right, enough playing around. It's time to give this beast its balls back. Now, if you saw the intro video on this and you know those specs, the video I posted where this was actually back at the track was probably a little bit of a disappointment. It won that first video, that first event, but it just wasn't the screaming 493-inch race gas big block performance that you would have expected. Granted, it's been retired for about 20 years. You still were expecting more. I was expecting more. A video that I didn't post, actually, this guy broke. By broke, I mean I lost second and third gear. Would not shift into either of them with any kind of load on it. I just kind of tossed in the towel and let that event go. But Duct Tape Drags is a couple days away. And a lot of the guys that were at the last event where this thing broke, and a few folks that I've got some scores to settle on the racetrack from previous years, are all going to be at Duct Tape. And it's time to get this thing back into shape. Now, of the many things I'm going to do in this video to get this bad boy ready, the obvious, which everybody was screaming about in the beginning, of course, is going to be these rear tires. Now, I had to run these street tires for the racing events in the past couple months, but Duct Tape Drags is all open. So naturally, I'm going to fill this wheel well, and I'm going to throw some sticky rubber on there. Now, I know it looks like there's tons of space between the tire and the outside of the quarter panel, and that's because you're right. There is. Going at the widest point of the tire, there's about 3 inches of unused space in here. So we're going to take care of that. Now, as I go through the video and I show you all these upgrades, some of these are obvious, right? Some of these you're going to be scratching your head just as hard as I'm going to be scratching my head. I don't know what the last owner was thinking. I think it was just an enthusiast trying to get it on the road. Some of these things are massively hurting horsepower and are just kind of dumb. But we're going to take care of all those today. This one was my fault. It's all good. I'm correcting it. All right, and these are the bad boys going back on. So the original steel wheels coupled with some Mickey Thompson East Street Rs. These are actually 315/60 R15. So they are a DOT rated tire. Tread wear of 0, of course. Nice and soft, but more importantly, nice and thick. This is 13.5 inches wide, so it's going to basically fill up the entire wheel well and hopefully not rub. Haven't had one on the car yet, so let's find out. It looks so mean with these fat tires on the back. These are 2 inches taller than those Cooper Cobras as well, so the speeds at each of the gears are going to be a lot more appropriate for a quarter mile, which is what Duct Tape Drags is in Tucson. So as you can see, there's enough room here. A little hard to tell without the suspension being loaded, but before I do that, I'm going to tackle the next step. So for now, I'm just super excited to see these fatty meats back on the car. But I'm not trying to drop this thing and raise it again just for one video clip. So I'm going to jump into the next upgrade we're doing today. All right, things are pretty crusty under here. You know, I haven't touched this since I got it. This sat for decades since the build. So these shocks, springs, everything's got a nice little layer of some surface rust on it. And I apologize for the camera and my voice as well. I still have COVID, so I'm trying to get all this stuff done while I feel weak and like shit, to be honest, but I don't have time. Got to get this thing ready. Hopefully I'll be testing negative a day or two before the event. Obviously I won't go if I'm still testing positive, but I think I'll be all right. The timing is working out. So without further ado, the next step is going to be to get rid of these nasty coilover springs. These are extremely stiff. I don't think they're doing the best for me as far as weight transfer. The bushings are all super cracked. That one's missing actually. And those posts are not designed to have that much weight. So I'm going to swap these out for some adjustable competition engineering units. So. So these are the brand new Competition Engineering 3-way adjustable shocks. They are a drag shock specifically. They're pretty nice units. I like them. When they first arrive, of course, they're in the box. They're completely compressed. You've got to go and raise the shaft to bleed out all the air. You'll raise it, recompress it around like 8 to 10 times. I think instructions are 10 to 12. I copped out at 8. You just got to get the air out. And you can hear it while you're doing it as well. These guys are pretty easy to adjust. You can do it obviously while the bottom of the mount or the bottom of the shock is still mounted. It's actually the easiest in my opinion. But what you do is you have to compress the shaft all the way. Got it on a firm setting right now, so it's difficult. Once it's all the way down, you'll turn it clockwise, just like the instructions show, and you can hear that loud click. Sec. It's here somewhere. There it is. So that's the loud one, and I know that that was the one that was next because as I was installing this and put it in, I left it on the third click, which was the softest. So the loudest click, looking at the instructions, that's a 50-50 split, which should be the case for a perfect track, is what they say. So I'm going to go ahead and start there, and we'll adjust it as we need at the track. Now while I'm down here, I'm going to check something that I should have checked before I even started driving this car, and that's going to be the rear differential. I have no idea how much liquid is in it, what kind of liquid, etc. I know that it's leaking, as you can see. Looks like it's been leaking for a while. I'm going to pull the plug right here, see what we got. Those threads look a little wet. Might get some oil coming out. Nope. Oil looks pretty decent, actually. For sitting on the top, of course. Contaminants most likely be on the bottom. Yeah, it's actually not bad. It looks like it's maybe ½ an inch low. So it's been leaking for, a while, years, just not very much. So I'm going to go ahead and top it off. I'm going to assume they've got something close to this, but regardless, this is pretty much what I use for all my differentials. Got some Redline heavy shockproof. This is a 75 W90. It is designed essentially for racing. I mean, it's for heavy use applications. I'm also going to use this stuff in the transmission. That's one of the things we're going to do next after this. But first, I'll top this off, and then there's one last thing I've got to show you that pertains to the rear end over here. All right, ignoring the spider webs, you can see the fuel line here coming from the fuel cell. It's aluminum and fitting initially, and then it goes to this little jerry rig transition hose clamp to a regular rubber hose. It is a fuel hose, however, it is way more than the NHRA 12 inches. Goes all the way over the wheel well down to where the jack stand is at, and that is the major problem. Granted, this whole thing needs to be replaced. You need to have either hard line or stainless steel. So that will be a correction for another day. I'm going to leave it like this for now. I think Duct Tape Drags will be completely fine with it. But there's a problem. Coming over to the passenger side of the car, this is where the transition happens for that fuel line. As you can see, it goes to a ½ inch aluminum, but here's the rubber transition. And it's completely collapsed right here. Like, I'm surprised that I was able to run this at the track previously. I don't know how it was getting enough fuel. This is completely flattened, especially when there's suction added to the hose from the pump. Like, I don't know how it was able to actually deliver fuel. So to fix this temporarily, at least, I am going to disconnect that, kind of plug both, because I don't want to drain the fuel cell. I just topped it off. I'm going to cut this aluminum line back another 4 inches or so to ease that hard angle transition. Open this up some more so I can actually get fuel going to the engine. Okay, and after getting about a ½ gallon of gas running down my armpit, it felt like, I finally got it adjusted. So, as you can see, took out about 4 inches. Just use a pipe cutter. I'm not trying to blow myself up here. And I got a much better angle. You can kind of see there. No more massive crimp in the fuel line.
And of course it's aluminum all the way out to the pump. So that should definitely help a lot. I was having a little bit of bogging problems when it got warm. I'm not sure if that was the main cause, but one less thing to worry about.
All right, now after dropping the car, sliding under to take a look at the clearances, you can see I've got maybe a ½ inch between the tire and the frame rail on the driver's side. Passenger side is looking about the same, to be honest, which is perfect. Enough flex for the sidewall. I'm happy with it. On the outside edge, I've got maybe a ½ inch. Granted, the quarter panels are trimmed, so I'm not worried about it touching. All right, recapping what we did for the rear end. We swapped out those skinny Cooper Cobras for some big fat chunky monkeys, some Mickey Thompson drag radials. We also swapped out those ancient springs, the coilover springs, in favor of some competition engineering drag springs, 3-way adjustable units. So really happy with those. We also topped off around ½ of a quart of gear oil in the rear diff, and then of course fixed that nasty fuel line issue. So the rear end, effectively for what I wanted to do for duct tape, is now complete. It's time to move on to the transmission. As you can see, it's got a healthy little leak. Don't know what's in it. I also know that the dog box or slush box mod requires some different stuff. I think from the factory they actually tell you to put ATF in here. I'm going to go ahead and put that Redline. It's a 75 weight oil designed for this, especially doghouses. And to make sure that I'm not just reviewing theory thinking that this is going to work, I actually called the experts. Called Brewer Performance, and they suggested this Redline stuff as well. So let's cross our fingers to see what we get when we pull that plug. All right. That's pretty thick. Oh, that's not super great. There's a lot of extra junk on the plug. Beautiful. So here's the oil that came out of the trans. Quantity looks pretty good. It's pretty dirty. Pretty nasty stuff. And we'll see how this Redline stuff works. Now to fill it is pretty difficult. The fill plug, let's see if I can spot it. Is right there where you see that hose is at. So it's passenger side. Obviously it's located higher than the drain plug, which is right over there. That little hair is kind of falling out. So that's what the fill port is. I've got a hose in there. It's just a 3/8 fuel line, which fits in there perfectly. I've got it routed up and through the engine bay, and I'll show you how I'm filling it. All right, I don't have a pump or anything like that where I could just do this quickly. So I've got a funnel which is connected to that 3/8 hose, just kind of sitting down there. It takes a while, but I'll fill that hopper, that funnel, and then it just slowly feeds in. You know, it's got a pretty thick viscosity, so nothing quick. So what I'll do is I'll basically fill that hopper, come back and take a look at it every 3-4 minutes, and move on to the next step. Now these torque thirsties look beautiful and are lightweight, but I'm going to throw the Steelies back on just to complete the image. Now while I've got the wheel off, it only makes sense to jump in and kind of do this upgrade in 2 different aspects here. Aside from swapping the wheel, I'm also swapping these front shocks. These are the originals. I drilled a hole in them to see what that would look like, and it actually helped quite a bit at the track. But it's time to match the rears with these new competition engineering adjustable shocks. So same deal. These have a 3-way adjustment valve built into them. I'm gonna get these set up at a 90-10 ratio to start, as I want as much movement in the front as possible, transfer that weight back. We'll see how it works. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember where I stopped filming on that last piece of the shocks. Ice Cream Man came, so my boy and I got some ice cream. Can't pass it up when you hear that sound. I'm gonna finish this and then we'll jump back into getting this shock installed. All right, I got the Steelies back on the front. Shock's looking pretty. Of course, got to do my routine here of filling the trans. And of course, the last piece, good old-fashioned oil change. Now, if you remember the specs on this, you know it's high compression. It's been built for a lot of power. I'm gonna make sure I'm using an oil that still has some zinc additive in it. It's beyond the break-in period. Should have around 5,000 miles from what I've been told. But still, I'm going to run it just in case. Going with the 10W40 as opposed to the 2050 that it had in it, just because I had some doubts when I went with the 2050. I do not know the clearances on the mains or the rods here, and I know that 1040 is most likely a safe bet that'll still provide a lot of protection. 2050 probably would have been fine as well, just wasn't as sure, so gonna be played safe with this one. As you can see, I'm not really touching power. This 493 has got tons of power. Really the issue is just trying to get it to the ground. So I focused on the suspension. I've already done a few other things you've seen in some previous videos. You probably saw those gold strut arms, strut bars. A few things like that. Really just pushing the weight back. That's what I'm focused on. Focused on pushing the weight back, launching correctly, shifting throughout all the 4 gears appropriately. And I think this is going to be just fine. I'm hoping I can run some 11s. But more importantly than what the time is, I'm just hoping it can spank a certain satellite. So you'll see a video coming out in there here pretty soon. But essentially, some money on the line, this duct tape. This isn't going to be a 5K challenge car. I think I would just get called out for the body style. But there's some other competition going that I think are in the same boat. So it's time to see what they brought.